Yeah, no. If we could get Rick on the podcast for episode 100, it could actually lend a little bit of credibility to some of the things that I'm talking about, maybe. Right? Because I'm always just going anecdotal. Like, I'm just like, oh, this thing works because of this. And then it's like, oh, that's not actually why? Oh, all right. Because now I'm like, especially with some of the stuff that we're getting into now, I really am I'm just spouting out what I think.
It's uncharted waters.
Yeah. And then it would be better to have almost a surgeon on hand where it's like, oh, well, this is what I actually do. Like, this is how it actually works. And it's like, oh, what's
probably.
You know what I mean? Like,
these things aren't just happening. He's, setting his voltage like this and using this type of ink because it's more or less viscous than this ink, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I always feel like I wish I knew what I was talking about a little better.
Mm-hmm.
And because, like, I do, but I don't.
You know more than you give yourself credit for.
Yeah, but, like, I don't have the technical...
Sure, yeah.
Certainty.
You don't know what the scalpel does.
And even if I do know exactly what's happening, I don't really know how to explain it in a technical way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair.
You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't walk you through how you would get the same result.
Whereas your artist is going to tell you the names of the inks and the different needle groupings and saying, oh, I'm using a needle gauge like this because...
Like, I pay pretty close attention, and whenever we start, I always ask Rick what he's using.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in case somebody asks me. That is the only reason why I care, because so many people ask me what we're using and stuff. Mm-hmm. But, like, I don't know what any of that means necessarily.
I almost feel like I should get him set up on, like, fake skin just so he can see what all those things do.
Yeah. I mean, sounds like you need a sponsorship from Dynamic, really.
Oh, my God. I've had so many people offer to send me tattoo machines and stuff.
Good. Take them.
They think I'm a tattooer, right?
I'll take them.
Yeah.
A lot of people who are just like, what are your rates? What do you mean, what are my rates? We've talked about this one before. Yeah. Like, people just assume I know how to tattoo, right? Like, even though I'm not showing tattoos on my page that I've done. Like, it's just like, oh, of course this guy tattoos. How else does he make money? Right? What else would anyone ever pay him to do?
You need a video for your Instagram where you're like putting shaving cream on your face and taking it off with the tattoo machine.
Yeah, there you go. Just finding different things to do with their tattoo machines.
Different things to make what you actually do more enigmatic.
One as a hat rack.
Just make salad with two of them.
Technically, I'm still holding up my end of the bargain.
Yeah, you're using their machine.
Yeah.
Just they didn't specify that you had to use it for tattooing.
Yeah, they didn't tell me what I had to do with it. Right?
And that's their mistake.
Yeah. I love FK Iron's new whatever pen. It's perfect for my salad because it's terrible for tattooing. I heard that from a lot of tattooers.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the way you want to go about doing ads by slamming the product.
I mean, they already gave you the machine, so...
Hey, man, any notoriety's good, right?
Yeah,
that's right.
All press is good press.
Although they had some real bad press.
Some really bad machines.
Well, fair enough. But we're talking about them right now, aren't we?
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah.
You're not bringing up someone else. So.
I mean, I have a decent, super old, super high-end coil FK. That's a great machine.
Yeah.
And then I have a modern $1,000 pen that is a steaming piece of poop.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it is quite useless. So slam them all you like.
How bad does it have to be when it goes from a piece of poop to a steaming piece of poop?
Oh, man. It's not like...
It's not good.
No.
Useless for anything but tattooing a light rose.
On the best skin.
Yeah.
On the absolute best skin in the easiest area.
That's it. If you're tattooing a light set of clouds on a calf, I'm sure it would be fine. But so is literally any other tattoo machine.
Yeah, literally anything. You may as well be using a pencil.
That's right.
Yeah, you could get anything to show.
It's totally fine.
So what is your best case scenario for skin?
Probably calf.
Healthy.
No. I mean,
healthy.
Like, well, sure, healthy. You don't want an over-the-hill alcoholic coming in.
Not steroided.
Not steroided.
Stuff.
But we're talking about the worsts now. Let's talk about the best. What's the best skin? Who walks in here and you're like, oh, this is going to be an easy day?
A juice monkey, agoraphobic guy who needs a leg sleeve.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's your best?
Just got that skin that he's been taking all those steroids and his legs are this big and that skin is just
thought we were talking about bests.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah, that's great skin. That's great skin.
That sounds bad.
And he just, like, spent the last 10 years hiding in the basement and, like, exercising. So the skin is just, like, crystalline white.
Where do you
tight
find this
skin.
guy?
I don't
He does
know.
not exist.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was going to
because
say, you
Ju-
made him in a lab?
Juice monkeys always tan.
They get tan.
We know.
He's
well,
a
they
CRISPR
also, if they
baby.
take the right amount of substances, they get tan.
Yeah, I guess
naturally.
you're
They
the
get that
melanoidin.
red. Yeah, they get red real fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that complexion change.
Mm-hmm.
That's nothing I'm interested in.
No.
Right.
Well, you would notice.
Fair enough. You might notice in my beak. I
Yeah,
have
that's
a pretty
fair.
red nose anyway. I always think like sometimes my nose looks beet red, and I'm like, it's not like I'm an alcoholic, you know, in that big red.
Does that
nose.
happen if you drink?
I
Do you get
probably
that?
would. Like, but I don't drink often. So, but like, if I ever became a problem drinker, I'm sure my
Then-
nose would just be like just this giant hawk.
Over a couple decades.
Rudolphing it?
Yeah,
Ru-
Rudolph. Yeah.
Yeah, I said that right.
Oh,
Oof,
yeah.
Like
that was
blood
tough.
vessels bursting in. Because like I've always had a bit of a red beak anyway, so I wouldn't want to make matters worse.
Now, I feel like the factors affected by those steroids would be pigment based, when the redness in your nose you might experience on a daily basis would be more vascular based. So chances are you would actually mask and hide the redness in your nose rather than increasing it or making it more noticeable.
You think so?
I'm guessing.
Well, I will say I'm not saying I'm gonna go get some steroids.
Yeah, I wouldn't
no, that's
recommend
not
it.
what I'm get. But I have said before, people have asked my thoughts on the matter. It's like I think it's like it's an avenue for change.
It's a body mod.
It is, and also like I work out every day with weights.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to get huge right now,
No.
but it seems like there's almost no difference. So now if that
Well,
was
it's maintenance.
well, right, exactly.
Yeah.
So no, if that bothered me, like if that was something that I was trying to gain and I wasn't, yeah, I'd be hitting steroids because like I wouldn't be okay with just like, well, maybe one day. No, because like some people don't grow as easily as others.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
just a fact of life. Like some people don't get the same gains as others, and they need maybe you have lower testosterone.
Yeah, it's usually
like,
what it
right?
centers around.
Better
Or your
body
growth
shape,
hormone,
whatever, build for it. It makes sense to me why someone would do that. So I have no issue with people doing that, and I just don't know if I want to ever.
Yeah.
But like I do have an ambition to get huge one day, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that otherwise.
I just assume when you're done getting tattooed, whenever that might be.
Done getting tattooed.
So like 30 years from now, then you'll be
Yeah,
like,
well-
okay, I guess I got to get jacked now.
done getting tattooed keeps getting farther and farther away from me.
Well, yeah, now that you've opened this whole new Pandora's box of tattooing.
Well, but I don't regret it.
No,
At
of course
first I
not.
was kind of like,
What have I
good
done?
Lord, what have I done? But that's because I had so many lines on me. And I'm sitting here now, today. We're going to finish the last thing we have lined today. And then it's like, okay, now this is looking like something. Because,
So
like,
you're gonna say you're gonna take a break for a couple weeks?
no, God, no. I don't feel like
That's
that
not how
at
he
all.
works.
I think I made him angry.
Yeah.
No,
oh
no.
God, no.
No. It's
How
just
dare
like,
you?
Like, now it's, like, taking shape. And I think one of the things that was initially bothering me was, like, I had a few posts go pretty viral when we first started this. Like, the spider eyes went on Ink Magazine. And, like, I had the video you took after the session when he lined most of this. And my body's, like, shaking from all the lining. But, like, people, I think, were just kind of like, huh, that's cute. Blackout guy wants some tattoos.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I was very annoyed at that. And no one ever came right out and said that, but like that's kind of the feedback that I feel like I was getting. Like people were like, "What is it supposed to be?" Like, "Oh, but you can barely see it." Like that kind of stuff. It's almost like yeah, it would have been better if you had done it on normal skin though. You know what I mean? Like that kind of a And though that might be true that it would stand
There's
out,
a glimmer of truth there.
but at the same time, when I heard things like that coming out, it made me want to go farther with it, where it's like, no, I'm not okay with that. No, that's not what I'm doing. I'm not playing second fiddle.
Yeah, pissing off all the normies.
I'm going to take this even farther. Like, then my brain started going to different places. Like, originally I didn't think I would do red ink. Like, I was like, I don't want any color. But then I was like, you know what? Let's try red ink. And then when Rick was like silver, I was like, I was already thinking about that myself.
I don't think I've seen the silver yet.
Well, we're gonna,
no silver yet.
We're going to do that today.
Oh, there you go. That makes sense then.
But like, I'm like, now all of that stuff that I was like, yeah, maybe not. Now I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do that. Not only maybe, I'm going to do that. I'm going to pull out every stop.
Went from a soft maybe not to a hard yes.
Because it's everything we've tried has worked.
Yeah.
Everything, and the least successful thing we've done is the most popular thing, the white ink.
on black, yeah.
Everyone's always asking me, "You gotta do more white ink? Why didn't you line that with white ink? Why didn't you do that with white ink?" When has white ever showed better than black?
It's unreal subtle.
Yeah, like I had a guy message me this morning, and he's like, I'm going to do a blackout sleeve. I have no tattoos. Should I do blackout and then put white lines over top, or should I do negative space?" I was like, negative space.
Yeah, obviously.
Like, it's
That's gonna
not
be way
hard.
more striking.
But this is the problem with social media again, because you get those day one whiteout tattoos.
Yeah.
And I did it. I showed the moon first day, but then I showed it to you as it healed. And it's here, but it's not amazing. Like, it is what it is.
Well, that's like I was assuming exactly what we got, which is like a tone or so above black.
I mean, we could get it. This is shaded, so it's not packed, right?
Yeah.
We could get it more white.
Yeah.
But like, it's never going to be as good as negative space.
I think as a stunt, I think a tattoo that would really suit you is if you can white ink on top of your black right here. You got white on black is a lie, and then just every day made a post about it until it kind of disappeared.
See, my problem isn't with white ink, though.
No, of course
It's
not.
with people's understanding of white ink.
Exactly,
now.
It's the day one photo.
This would be a social experiment, bringing people into the sphere, or bringing the process of healing white on black into the sphere, and like just get your artist to put it in a little bit lighter anyway. You know, get Rick to just shade it in there with a bag, so it's like really gonna age poorly and just really.
You know, this is my arm we're talking about.
You can black it out later. It's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
That's right.
None of
I don't
this
give a
matters
fuck what
anymore.
happens to your arm, Remy.
Like this, I've had so many weird realizations over the last few weeks. Just over the last month, where it's like,
It was because of episode 50.
I was going to
wasn't
say
it?
episode 50.
no, like,
Unconditional
why
love
is laser
is
a
the
thing?
most important.
Like, I'll keep thinking, like, why is laser a thing?
What do you mean?
Well, let me explain what I mean.
to
Please.
blow up cities from space.
Yes.
Well, no, like, so I understand why we do laser.
Okay.
But, like, if you could just black something out and put color over it, like,
Right.
that's another option that no one
Most-
seems to understand.
Most people can't.
No, I'm not saying that Rick isn't an amazing artist. I'm not saying that. I'm saying there are amazing artists that can do that.
Sure.
Right? But that service has never been offered.
Think about like blackouts. How many blackouts are we trying to fix up right now?
Oh, several.
Yeah. Like in the last week, I've got 4 in the queue because they got in with somebody that were like, yeah, for sure, I'll give you a blackout tattoo.
Yeah.
No problem. It's easy peasy.
Okay,
And then
so
all of a
maybe
sudden
what
you're
I'm
like,
getting at is like a perfect world scenario.
Sure.
But like even in saying that, it's not a service that's ever been spoken about.
No.
I have never heard of this being possible. Not once.
well, okay, so a lot of things come with that though, right? Like micro portraits, things that shouldn't last, that are looking fine.
Work great.
Yeah.
But give it 10 years.
Well, but it's better than what was thought. You know what I mean? Because like
Yeah,
the technology
exactly.
now, the sharpness of the needles, even just the tightness of a needle is very different than what it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when a lot of these kind of things were built into the minds of guys that are 20-year tattooers. You know what I mean? Where it's just this like, well, that was never possible before. So it's like even this, you've got a guy that's open-minded to something that would normally not be looked at as possible.
I know.
And let's be honest, a cover-up that went 2 layers of black and then color is never going to have the same contrast as a
not gonna have
tattoo
the
that was
same
lasered
contrast.
and then covered.
But
Yeah.
you're also going to have a lot of scar formation there too. Either way, I guess.
Yeah.
From
So
the laser?
Well, no, like the laser doesn't. As long as you do the laser right, it shouldn't add
healing,
scarring.
right.
See,
you
I've
have
seen
scarring
some pretty
there.
banged
right.
up stuff after laser, where you're like, "Oh, Jesus!" what
That's
happened to
not
that?
always the laser person's fault, though, because like
Whatever
when
was
when
under
I'm
there.
going over an area that has scar tissue, that scar tissue reacts differently than the rest of the area that doesn't. So like if you've been scarred up real bad by a former artist, I can't help that.
Oh, I know.
You know what I mean? So it's like because I don't break the skin, right? Like if laser's happening, it's happening under. But if you have scar tissue, it'll bleed, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh shit,
Well, what's
you got scar
interest-
tissue here.
What's interesting to me is, like, people will be walking around with tattoos and they're like, "Oh, this was put in perfect. Like, look how nice it looks." It's like, yeah, it looks nice. You don't know if it's scarred or not.
No, you have no idea.
I have so much scar on my legs that didn't look scarred.
Yeah, yeah.
like we would just hit like a part of my leg when we were blacking it out, and it was like, oh, that's like cement in there. It's like, whoa, that was really scarred in.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it
like,
didn't look like it.
This arm here, don't get me wrong, it's not scarred. As in, give it a couple months, it'll be gone. But, like, this is done by an artist who really knows his liners well. Like, his lines are freaking flawless. And still, over this bone, here it is 2.5 months later. I can still kind of feel
Got
this.
some ripples.
There's a little bit of keloid. It's a little bit raised. You know, and you'd never expect it. But it's there.
Yep. But that's also like technically a tattoo is coloring in a scar.
That's right.
Yeah.
You know what I
So there's
mean?
a certain amount of it that kind of just goes with the territory.
Yeah,
You know,
really.
It's
You
just
can't escape
sometimes
it.
more than others.
Yeah,
That's
It's
right.
like if you remove a tattoo entirely, you have a scar-shaped design of that tattoo.
Yep.
Like it just is going to be a different
No
texture,
matter
a
how
different
many
color.
times
Yep,
we
doesn't
blacked out some of my stuff, it's like if you have scars there, they'll still show.
Yep.
Like there's still, you can sometimes see Spawn's face still sometimes. Like he's not always there, but sometimes it's like, oh, hello again. I blacked you out how many times?
At least 3.
Oh, well, Spawn's been done I think 4 or 5 times now.
What?
See, there you go.
Yeah, but Spawn
So it's
himself
grays, man.
was Spawn himself was
Opaque grays,
tattooed
trying to black out over top of those grays. Oof.
Jeez.
and greens and
Yeah, those
yellows.
lime greens and all that.
But the Spawn himself was done 3 times. Because
Oh.
like we changed him, we did like black and gray Spawn, then we added color, then we touched him up. Then he's been blacked out God knows how many times, like every time we're in the area. And then Rick just redid the whole arm again, right? Like both of my sleeves.
It's amazing what the skin can take.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's wild.
Yeah, well, every part of my upper body has been worked on more than 10 times. Every part. There is nothing on my upper body that hasn't been tattooed.
What about that
and I
back
don't even
piece?
mean like pieces. Like every single part of my skin has been tattooed that many times.
Who did the back piece?
Lee.
Okay, yeah. That didn't get 10 times
Lee
over, did it?
didn't. Okay, so my back is a little different.
I was gonna say,
it's probably
'cause,
only been worked on. Like each area has probably only been hit like 5 times ish.
That's still
Because he
a-
kept coming back to it and going, "I want to change this. I
Really?
want to darken this thing."
Huh.
Yeah, he's still not satisfied with where it's at.
Wow.
He's still always like, "I need to finish that." I'm like, "It's been done for like 3 years, 4 years. I think it's been 4 years since he first finished it." He's like, "I still need to hit that again." Like, what are you gonna hit? Like, it doesn't really need anything. You could change things. There's some things that I've thought about changing, but like, it's a finished piece. He just keeps wanting. Every time he touches that back piece, he changes the girl's muff. Every time he gives her a different muff. Like, I don't know what it is. It's like architect or like gardening for him.
Next
It's
time
true. He does a
Topiary.
different muff every time.
Next time he'll get white on black and give her a granny muff.
It was bigger, and then he made it thinner somehow one time.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, which doesn't make any sense.
He's a bit of
No.
a wizard that way, though. Like, there was a time when he was blacking out part of my arm, and he took out, like, part of a tattoo we were keeping, and he was like, "Oh, I wasn't supposed to black that out." And then he just went in with white and, like, brought it back out.
Yeah.
And now it's, like, scarred. But, like, it actually did work.
Yeah.
Like-
yeah, Rick told me to do that on something on Zach. It was just like, yeah, no, just go dark up to it and then hit white to push him out. And I was like, what? That sounds like...
Yeah, it's really scarred, but like it did work. Like we got that piece back out. It was the exact same as it was, except now that it's blacked out, you can see like heavy scar right here.
Yeah, just a little.
That's
And
like
honestly,
the tip of a horn off of a helmet.
These tricks would get used more if it wasn't for the fact that they're quite inefficient time-wise.
Well, they're
No?
they're savers, right?
That's right.
They're like whoopsies.
They're Hail Marys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like a remarkable what's possible that people don't appreciate. Like
Yeah.
my head tattoos were red.
Yeah.
They were red, and Lee was like, "Oh, they're too red." I was like, "I agree, they're too red." I was like, "I want them darker." He's like, "Well, who told you we can't make them darker?" Because like, I was told they couldn't be darker because they were done red and black. So if you shaded too much more black, you'd lose the shape, right? He's like, "Well, what we need to do is get rid of that red." So he like whited over all the red, and it like lightened up a ton, and then he brought more black into it. Like they have gone more reddy over time, but they never went back to red, and not just a straight white over top of the red. So like these roses have been done, I think 4 times.
Again, it's amazing what can happen in the skin.
Yeah,
That's astounding.
Yeah, it was
It's like, because like again, tattoos have an element of permanence. You know what I mean? Like they're just jabbing into the skin, and then these are those things where it's like,
tattoos
whatever.
are permanent, I always just giggle in my head, like, how permanent are they?
Yeah.
Because, like, even the back of my head, this rose has looked like 4 different ways. It was first done black and gray. Then we added a whole bunch of filigrees around it, right? Then those were all black and gray originally. Then Lee made them all red because he wanted to match the roses here.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I did these ones to the color they are, he's like, okay, now we're going to make this just like a total black rose. So the back of my head is now like just a black rose. There's like very, very little negative space. But it's like, yeah, that thing has had at least three different faces on the same rose. So there's almost no limit to what you can do.
It's wild though. You'd think there would be.
Well, because if I get tired of these red spider eyes, I could black them out and put blue eyes on there if I was patient enough. If I was patient enough.
Yeah, that's the real kicker, right?
Because that is the kicker. It's almost like you're dealing with your patience and like an artist's understanding.
Yeah, their competence.
Yeah.
I wonder, there's got to be a limit. At what point?
I don't know.
If over the course of my life,
Age?
once every 3 months, I put a new layer on this thing right here. And so right now it's yellow. Next, I'm going to go nice dark red on there. No problem. I was going to cover that yellow. Then eventually I cover it in black, and I go light blue. And then I have to do 4 layers of light blue to get it to stay light blue, but now it's light blue. And then I go dark blue.
Well,
so at some point, is that ink actually escaping that derma?
I have no idea, but I will
Dermis?
say from my anecdotal experience again, what I seen happening with the white ink was different from any other thing we've done. So like we've done white, we've done black, we've done red, right? So the black and the red both seem to sit over top of the black. But the white seemed to mix into it. Like it was almost like you were like making gray washes.
Yeah.
Like it was a weird thing that happened
How-
over the next few days after I got the white tattoo.
When you did the white tattoo, how old were the tattoos at that time?
Very old. Like this hand hasn't been tattooed in a long time.
No, I mean like when you did the
Oh,
rose
these.
thing?
Yeah, same thing happened there.
Was it north of a year?
Oh, yeah.
Wow, that's
So these roses were originally done at the end of 2015.
yeah.
And then I had them touched up because the red was a little shoddy in places in 2017. And then they were like solid, bulletproof red. Like you couldn't get a more solid color tattoo. So then Lee put white over that. And then
Wow.
See,
he did one at a time because it was quite a undertaking.
Yeah.
that's the trick with all of this, though, is when you're putting ink into that skin, in theory, it's just staying in the dermis. So it's going below the epidermis, into the dermis, and then not the subcutaneous. So whenever you add more ink to it, so like, your blackout's got a bit spotty, you add some more black. Great. You're just adding black to the same layer as the other black is hanging out or not hanging out. But now when you start adding red to it, in theory, you're just adding red ink to that mixture of black ink that's already in the skin.
Yeah,
But in theory, the black ink has also thinned out enough that it's just kind of uniformly hanging out in there. Then you add enough red to it that now that area has a ton of red sitting in it.
that's what I was thinking. I'm like, eventually you can almost like, if I were to get these, and we're going to do another coat of the red, even though they're like you won't probably see it on camera in the podcast, but that red is there.
It's
Like,
there,
It's
yeah.
looking better now.
But you can
Well,
tell
even-
that it's mingling with the black in there.
Even look compared to the red that's in your other side of your chest piece, it's still pretty dominant. Like
I know.
And granted, the shade of red is a lot lighter that was gone in, so obviously it's mixing with the
Well,
black
that
to
was
make that new
purposeful,
shade, right?
Like that was just, we both knew we needed to go in lighter
Yeah.
to get a darker red. But like, if we put more red in there, then all of a sudden there's more red balance to black balance, and the red shows better.
That's what I'm thinking. Is
what I'm
slowly,
thinking.
if you keep adding to it,
Yeah.
and eventually you're going to kind of dominate that red, that black out of there.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm hoping because I need to add red to this red that's rejecting.
Right.
Because I'm
Well,
really hoping that if I go in there with a different pigment of red, I can kind of force out some of the other stuff.
The ink won't be coming out at all. You're just changing the ratios, right?
Well, but that's what I mean, right? Because
Yeah.
like right now, it's rejecting.
We
so
should
I
do
need
that
to-
sometime.
Yeah, I know. I don't
I
really
had,
want to anytime, but I
We should
want
probably
to.
start with white, actually.
Oh.
I got that super light, super viscous silverback white. Or is viscous mean thick or thin?
Thin.
Okay, good.
I think
So
viscous
I
is-
super viscous white. So we should do that over there first.
Okay.
And see how that sits in.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm down for whatever because my leg is itchy every single day.
All the time.
All of the time. I am like anytime somebody says, "Oh, I'm so itchy, I'm healing this new tattoo." I'm like, I've never not been itchy since I got this thing.
It's so
And
weird.
I've been healing other tattoos that I don't notice
Yeah,
because
yeah.
this one's so itchy.
I had so much red ink, like so much red, and it was all like really like sharp.
Yeah.
Like really vibrant. And I had red ink in here before. Like this was like a rose at one point.
Yeah.
Like they had like a giant rose mantle here that Lee covered with black, and the red just kept showing through. Like you couldn't see it just looking dead, but you get like a shine of light.
Yep.
You could see the red.
Yep.
And he just like, I need to hit it again. I need to, and he was never satisfied. He just kept hitting things that kept shining red. So then when we put this red over top of that again, I'm like, I wonder how much of the old red is like, I remember this. Like,
I'm back.
yeah, like it was just like, oh, well, I've been here all along. You're just waking me up.
Hard to get rid of me, motherfucker.
There's so many questions I just don't have the scientific answer for.
I don't know if anyone does.
Well, it's like, I don't know anyone I can ask about this.
Well, who's done their whole body 6 times?
I don't know anyone to ask.
What are we talking about?
And a scientist.
Yeah.
You know?
And a tattooer.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I always feel like I should ask and, like, double-check my information before I start babbling. But, like, there's nothing I can do for
No,
that.
there's no one you have to ask.
And even the most experienced artist who specializes in exactly this can't tell you, oh, the layers of skin and this particular pigment breaks down more, and when there's more added to it, then it goes back into your bloodstream. Like, there's no way of knowing that for sure unless there's been a long, in-depth surgical medical study done on the subject.
And who's going to do that?
Which there's no impetus for. There's no reason to do
No,
that.
that would take way too much time and money.
Yeah.
So what I always think is, like, humans are just so customizable.
Yeah.
Like, we're just endlessly customizable. It's like if you can think it, you can get there.
We're like a Harley Davidson.
I started looking at some body mod stuff on the internet, and yeah, it's so customizable. We're this far away from being like, you know what? I don't want hands. Cut them off.
Yeah,
you know
we
what?
really are.
Fuck my ears and nose.
Yeah, we've already done that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just discovered Alien Dude.
Black Alien Project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's that was
huge.
something.
Black
What the
Alien
fuck?
Project is like a superstar. Like everybody wants this guy, like on interviews and stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to talk to him. Everybody wants his story right now. Like he's so hot, and he's in such.
He's so hot right
He
now.
is. He's so hot right now.
Black Alien Project is so
Everybody
hot right
wants
now.
this guy's story, and he's like really like, like he's just really humble. Like I've seen him do an interview with Renez,
Yeah.
and he's just this chill guy. He's just peaceful. Keeps himself in good shape. Loves body mods.
But man, the
he's a
nose is the only
complete-
thing that hurts my soul when I see that.
Nah, the
It
ears
just
freak me out.
the ears.
Because
okay.
it's so functional.
I mean,
nose
so
is
is the
functional too.
nose.
Yeah. Fuck.
But like the Black Alien Project is always a guy that I could point to because I've known of him for a long time.
Yeah.
And he's one of the guys that I've always got in mind when I say like kudos to them for wanting to go that way, but like I still want to look like human at the end of it. And his intention is to not look human.
Yeah, he's
and
looking-
that's not a diss.
No, that's what he's aiming for.
He's gone there.
He's
already.
trying to do something above human or beyond human or different. Where I'm like always just like, what? Oh, I still want to look like a human being. I just, you know.
That's the thing. I like the human form.
Yeah.
I like things that complement the human form. I don't really want to take away from that.
Yeah, I just embellish and
Yeah.
exaggerate or.
I think
or
we're
adorn.
cool. We're cool as like a thing. Like
If
it
I-
just as an object, human beings are cool. Like we look weird. And
It's where like I'm in a weird spot where I'm in the extreme to the point where people expect me to keep going.
Yeah,
to
of course.
More extremes.
They're like, why haven't you tattooed your eyes and split your
Yeah,
tongue
yeah.
yet?
always-
why do you still have a mouth?
Yeah, pretty well. Like I do get questions like, "Well, why haven't you done this yet?" Almost like, the nagging one I always get is, "When are you blacking out your face?" Well, clearly the blackout is done. Like I consider the blackout project over now.
Yeah,
I'm no
yeah.
longer doing blackout
Chapter
tattooing.
closed.
I'm not going to touch up my legs. I've been on the fence about it for a long time. Like I need to touch some spots on my legs up. They were one pass in a lot of areas. There's a lot of connector lines that Rick wasn't going to touch when they were healing. Then there's streaks there that need to be smoothed because obviously when we were doing week, like back after one after another, there's a lot of stuff that's healing, and you can't smooth it out that day.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm like, I'm probably just gonna put tattoos over that, and they're gonna be like tattoos. They're not gonna be blackouts. Like that part of my tattooing is done.
So
I have no interest in doing any more.
when
of
you
it.
decide to remove your ears,
You're
how
like,
are you
"Let's
going to
take
do
right
it?
back." I don't know how that works. But as far as I know,
A
all
little
of
bit of
you,
numbing cream and a pair of scissors.
well, everybody always thinks that my ears don't work because of the holes in them.
Right,
Like, people
right.
are always like, "How do you hear?" Because your ears are supposed to be like a.
It wouldn't be good for cycling,
Well, probably.
or
not.
maybe it would be better for cycling.
Super aerodynamic.
Well, that's the thing is right now when
streamlined.
Yeah.
if I'm going fast, like, there's kind of a loud noise here.
There's speed holes.
Yeah, yeah. There's like Homer Simpson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my thing is, it's like, what do you mean? There's people without ears, literally without ears,
Yeah.
that can still hear.
Yeah.
So like,
Well,
my
I
ears.
understand what they're saying because like the cone directs sound, blah blah blah. You know, all that stuff.
And it's possible that I've lost some hearing.
Well, you've lost some funneling, right? Like the way your ear works, that's to try and get sound into it. So you're probably having some sound miss you in some ways. So stuff that's coming from the front is probably getting missed from time to time, whereas from the side
It would be
you have-
impossible for me to tell you.
Whereas
yes.
I would
Yeah.
hypothesize that someone without earlobes would have a harder time telling where a sound is coming from.
See, but here's where
Right.
I'm where
yeah,
I'm going.
I think that there would be a spatial imbalance.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
Or just dampened because like right now, like the average human, you hear where a sound is, you can look at it. Like
Yeah.
it's very wired in.
Yep.
When I think if you lost that, you would be less efficient at that.
Well, like Neumann has a microphone that is a human head.
Uh-huh.
So it's the same mechanism. They have ears, and there's
Yeah.
like two.
Where do they get their heads?
Directional. They make them out of foam.
Oh, okay.
It's
Boring.
but yeah, so they have two omnidirectional because that's
Yeah.
how our ears
Yeah.
actually work. They're omnidirectional, but they're so it just that's how it hears.
Cool. Great.
But the ear shape does come into play with how that works. But it's
Yeah.
if they're trying to catch the space of a room or something like that, the way you would hear it, that's the microphone they use.
Cool.
my thinking is, because I've done everything very like gradually. Like I've been working on, say, this one here since 2006 was the first time I stretched the cartilage.
Yeah.
It's like everything I've been working on has been bit by bit.
Yeah.
So like,
notice.
you would have such a gradual change. That there's even if you did it all at once, it would be hard probably to notice. But if you're doing it very gradually, like you're not going to notice. Your body's compensating all the time.
Yeah.
It's like when you start to go blind in one eye, the other eye's picking up for it, and you
Yep.
don't even realize.
Yep.
That's what they tell you anyway.
Even like if you were to get shot through there and then that creates that big hole, you'd probably have a night and day difference.
That's why I always
But-
say, like, because people will get their conscience punched.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's common knowledge that that's the only way to get to a big size for some reason. That's always, you have to get your conch punched.
What?
No.
Again, it's just because nobody does it.
No, none of that is true. Stop
Yeah.
saying things that aren't
All
true.
of those, like cartilage stretching, is not common. Just as a thing.
Yeah.
He's an anomaly in that respect because
Huh.
it's just like within the piercing industry, it's like no, you just got to punch it.
Yeah, no, that's not
But no,
actually
you can
true.
you can just do a normal piercing and you can gauge it up.
Real slow.
Yep.
I have not punched anything.
Yeah.
Who's punching anything in this city? And
No.
where do I go?
No one.
So many answers to that
Claire's.
question.
Yeah,
Like-
like where have I gone to get these punches done?
No.
They're not happening.
But it's like that's the weirdness about how new this industry is. It's like he's living proof that
Yeah.
common thread is wrong.
So you couldn't put a motorcycle helmet on, could you?
Oh yeah,
Gotta
You
have a
could?
big one.
yeah. I can put earbuds in too, like little
AirPods.
AirPods, whatever the fuck. Yeah, like I use them all the time. People are always
just
like, I
picturing,
guess
like, how
you
you
can't use
get-
headphones anymore. Like,
Because like,
yeah,
I already
Guess you can't hear.
my
'cause,
ears
like, I
are
can't
like,
even get a helmet on with earbuds in. I can't imagine doing it with.
oh, my ears
jewelry.
are surprisingly like whatever.
Huh.
Like they don't hurt. They're all healed.
And
Like,
it's well healed, right?
crazy.
Yeah.
And not to mention it's well healed multiple times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's his ear.
Yeah, my
his ears
ears-
are probably pretty chill.
Yeah, they've given up on any sense of normality at this point. But because I've always said, if you get your conch punched, you have such a huge immediate change, you might notice something.
Yep.
So I'm thinking if you chop your ear off, you might notice something.
Oh, of course
I
you
would-
would. Yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah.
there's no step-by-step process to eventually not having an ear anymore. Unless you're chopping off little bits at a time.
That's why I asked how would you do it, because I'm picturing like if you want to do the gradually thing, you could get a series of small piercings here, and then you're kind of like cutting a little piece at a time.
I don't know if it's the same thing, because with stretching, you're just, or even when you make a piercing, it still disperses the skin. A lot of the
you
skin,
haven't lost tissue.
the skin isn't really going away. Like, it's not like you're actually
Yeah.
taking away skin. It's just kind of pushing it out of the way.
So you just rock up to Thailand, you pay the local hospital 40,000 baht, and which is $2, and carry on.
I don't think I'm doing that, but
Okay.
on that note,
Well, I mean, if you were interested in that, that's what you do.
If that's what you're into.
I stopped stretching like both of these because the interaction between the two of them has become like too much. Where
Pinchy.
it's like
Yeah, they're
one
getting
piercing
close.
is pushing the other piercing.
Yeah.
So like I had hoped to keep going with this one because it's my favorite
But your
piercing.
ears will literally get bigger at this
Well,
point.
my ears have already gotten bigger.
No, it's
Yeah.
just they're gonna squish in that one area.
But yeah, this part of my skin is like cramped. This cartilage, this hard, like this is like this spot right here is like a part of your ear that's typically not ever pierced. 'Cause
Right.
It's the thickest cartilage in your ear, and it's at its wit's end because it's being pushed from both directions.
It's had
Extreme-
enough.
Like it's being pushed not a little, a lot from both directions. So it's like I don't know if I can get any bigger in either one without causing some real harm.
I mean, I'm sure you could, but yes, causing some
Well,
real
what
harm
starts
is
to
the thing.
happen is when you're stretching things and they get to that hard wall, they start to stretch outward, and then you start to lose tissue, and then you can
Yeah.
rip.
Well, I'm seeing like even on these here at the bottom, you've got thinner areas
Yep.
on the outside.
It's because
you know?
they can't go any farther inward.
That's right.
So once you can't go farther
This just
inward,
gets smaller and smaller.
it starts to go farther outward,
Classic
and then
Play-Doh
eventually,
effect.
yeah, your skin starts to thin, and you can have a tear. Like I actually had
I see that,
one
yeah.
tear here, right? Because the skin
You
was
have a
too thin.
serrated ear.
Yep. But
It's great for cutting bread.
the interesting
I
thing
bet it
about
is.
the look that I've got is that people have never made that association. Like I'll show this ear off, and people will never comment on this one because it's like, oh, he probably just notched his ear. Because
That's a
people
thing?
do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm picturing you a single hole punch.
Yeah.
And right about here, that's a good place.
Well,
for
I
an
am in
extra hole.
the extreme that someone would do that, right? Or-
Yeah.
But again, that's going to the punching idea. Who's doing ear notching anywhere around?
It sounds like
No one
someone
here.
needs to take up that slack, Remy.
Somebody
called-
does need to, but it's
Yeah.
illegal.
Oh, okay. Well,
It's unfortunate that in Canada we have such rules that permit you from doing things like that above board.
Yeah, because those things are all plastic surgery, right?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're surgery, exactly.
There
But
are people
surgeons
doing
don't
it.
know how to do it.
There's a guy doing, at least one guy doing this stuff in Calgary, but they don't ever post about
I
it.
was gonna say on the down low.
Yeah,
You got to know a guy who knows a guy.
yeah. And also that place, I'm not going to say their name, obviously, but that place, they
Just
have
out
a
them.
really, really elitist atmosphere. Like they are,
Which is
Knee
normally a
punch ears.
they are, they're, but no, they're like douchey.
Yeah, yeah.
Like they're mean.
that's normally a bad thing, but that's what you want from someone doing such a covert procedure.
fair.
That's also
Gatekeeping.
riskier.
But like I've heard so many stories about that place where I'm like, I'll never ever go there for anything. I don't care if they're the only ones that can do something I want. I don't want to engage with people like that.
Yeah.
Because I find it insufferable. Like I'm not going to kiss your ass so that you'll do
Man,
this for me.
If anybody
Just
walks up and
high-ego
says,
environments.
I'm the best.
Yeah.
Well, that's an attitude I don't need to be around.
it's true. I
Well,
don't want to be around that attitude.
The attitude of "I am the best" is incorrect
Yeah.
in
Of
any
course.
in any art form.
Of
Like,
course.
you might be talented at one thing. You might be even considered to be the best at one thing, but that's at one thing.
and
You're not the best.
well, it's like self-esteem and a healthy ego can all be part of a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when someone amongst their peer group has openly let that get out of control, you're like, this is a spiritually toxic environment.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah, I
need
can't
to
do it.
associate with this. Yeah.
Well, I
this
think,
is
like-
inherently unhealthy. I'm not in.
When I went down to, like, when I was doing the music thing and went down to Nashville, I met some monster players, like some absolute monsters, like the best of the best. And all of them were chill and humble, and they were all stoked on other people's stuff.
And now you're
it
here
was-
telling the story.
Yeah. And it was one of those things that it really taught me a lesson of, like, oh no, if you're really good, you don't have to have that ego stuff.
That's the trick, boys.
You can just be chill. You can just enjoy your
Yep.
life because you're not trying to prove anything to anyone.
Because once you've satisfied yourself, you no longer have the need to prove and satisfy to others.
Yeah.
Because your work now speaks for itself, and you don't care whether these people like it or don't. You're carrying along according to the beat of your own drum.
And you can find value in others.
Yeah.
Like, if you can't find value in those around you, like, what are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if it's just like, I'm the best and I don't talk to anyone else about it, like, whoa, what are we doing here, man? Like, life is too short for that kind of
That's
nonsense.
right.
Yeah, I
That's
agree.
right.
That's just a lonely world.
Oh, did you get really good at one thing?
Aw,
Congratulations.
nice.
You should try literally anything else, and you'll learn that you're not God.
Yeah.
They
Like-
live in these almost echo chamber like environments where they've been surrounded by groupies
Yeah.
for so long that have supported this opinion that it's like they can't even function outside of that. Like,
That's
can
right.
you imagine
Well, all the attention and focus is on the one thing.
some delicate genius going to get a entry level job somewhere and all of a sudden is being treated like the worst scum?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I get it. You did this thing. Get the dishes clean.
Yeah, no one cares.
No
Oh,
one
you're the
cares.
best musician ever. You lost 3 fingers, and now you're trying to be a plumber.
Oh, dude.
And right,
Yep.
like that, because that could literally happen.
Yep.
And I'm not saying you need to be prepared for this weird eventuality that's super unlikely, but it could fucking happen. And
Yeah.
is your human psyche one that can handle it?
Yeah.
That
Most
should
people know.
That
Yeah.
should always be not some present thought, but that should always be something playing in your
could-
consciousness.
You could
Yeah.
check your attitude with
I
it.
could be on the street tomorrow, possibly.
Yeah, you could hold that attitude up to it. Or what if I lost this one thing I'm so proud of
Yeah.
and I think brings me so much value? What if I lost that? Who would I be? Would I still be me? If the answer to that question is no, we have a fucking existential issue here.
Oh, yeah.
And you need to find a different reason to value yourself, you know?
I met a guy a couple years. Well, it's probably almost 10 years ago, actually. His name was Stacy. He was on the run from Red Deer to Lethbridge. He came into Humpty's for a job.
It's a long way to run.
He smelled like garbage. He looked like shit, and he's clearly had some problems, right? But he wanted a job, and we gave him a chance, and he worked like the devil. I've never seen anyone work harder than that guy his first day, and he ended up staying for like 4 years, but he sort of succumbed to his same problems again. A lot of people always made jokes about this guy, but my answer was always like, I see that this could be me one day. Like, if I got a little bit older and one thing went particularly wrong, I could end up like this guy. So I always had this like huge heart for this guy because I had this bond to him that I can't quite explain, where it was like he lost his wife and his kids and he lost his job. He probably got into drugs or something.
Yep.
And it all just went from 100 to 0 in no time. That was kind of his story. And then he came to Lethbridge to try and make a new life for himself, and everybody's judging him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Which is just, well, like,
you,
we have
we
this,
don't realize how close we all are to the edge.
we all have a drastic empathy problem within our society because it's like you don't think that you could be in that exact same spot. Which
Because
is really,
evolutionarily, the lucky survive. You know, the strong and
Sure.
the lucky survive. So we're meant to look after our own, but only if they've already put in the time. When a new straggler comes in who's clearly not making it, you're like, guess he's not strong
That
and
guy,
lucky.
he had one cigarette that he was nursing all through his first shift. I swear to God, you might call me a sap for doing this, but I bought him a pack of smokes on the way in to work the next day.
Yeah.
And I don't even know why I did it because I'm normally really jaded.
He's sitting somewhere right now thinking about that pack of smokes, man.
Well, I
You made his
I
year.
had an impact on him.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
we were friends for years. He
Yeah.
still, for a while, he would still like messaged me on Facebook to let me know how he was doing and stuff after he left. But like I haven't heard from him in years now. Not that I'm like missing that, but like that guy, I don't know why. I just had an instant connection that said I could be this guy one day.
That's good.
Like
We should all have that.
Yeah.
I just as soon as I seen him, I was just like, oh my god,
And
like,
not
this could be me.
And just to clarify, like we're not talking about a fear-based
No.
mindset. We're talking about a humility.
Yeah.
Even a lot of people take the word humble as very negative these days.
Yeah,
Whereas
they
take,
associate it with weakness. Which is
yeah,
weird.
where I take it quite like a certain amount of humble and humility in your life is a pretty positive thing.
Yeah.
It allows you to understand where other people are coming from.
Yeah, it's essential.
So I'm the kind of guy, like I have a very particular background, and people come at me all the time with stuff that feels super weird to me, super sideways. Like, that's your concern right now, but I intentionally take a step back and go, hey, how far am I from having a similar concern or one that's at least parallel? And
Well,
suddenly,
imagine this.
it kind of makes sense.
Say you lose your job today.
Yeah.
Then you go home and Rowan leaves you.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you're in that house alone, or in which case maybe let's say
I
you
get
can't
hacked,
pay for it.
every account is empty.
Right.
I lose enough fingers I can't tattoo anymore.
Yeah.
Rowan disappears through an accident or through whatever
Now let's
reason
put
she's
one more
gone.
in.
Yeah.
Parent dies the next week or something.
Yeah.
Right.
So now I'm like broken, homeless, and I'm trying to get to New Brunswick.
And yeah, you're grieving now too.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
What kind of things could become possible for you next?
Suddenly you're like,
There's
man,
any
I could
matter-
really smoke some crack.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's any number of terrible things you
Yeah.
can tap into from that.
Yeah, of course.
Oh man, there's like a simpler, scarier one that I always deal with. There's a guy I know. I went to high school with him, and he is currently wandering the streets of Lethbridge. He had a schizophrenic break,
Shit.
and he is wandering around talking to things that aren't there.
I think I know who you're talking
You
about.
probably do know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And that guy, like that scenario, scares the ever
Did he
living
used
shit
to
out of me.
do stand-up comedy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he went quick.
Yes. It was bam.
Wow.
It was like hit by a bus, and he's no longer the guy. And like that's one of those things that like that just seeing him out there.
There's
not-
got to be a different place for someone like that in our society than
Well,
just
we're not
wandering
allowed
the streets.
Well, okay, so right now in our society, what we value right now over anything is individual agency.
yeah.
So putting him in an institution,
Would mean that we're incarcerating
yes,
him,
exactly,
which is not tolerable to our society.
exactly. Even
so
though
the
it's
option
for
is for him to live on the street,
yeah, that's exactly what's happening.
where he's exposed
because
to all
he has
the
to choose
elements.
it. He has to choose it, but he's had a schizophrenic break. It is what it is. Like if he's not able to get on meds and he's not able to have people force him into those situations where he might get to a place where he's more stable, then he's probably just going to stay in the environment that he knows.
Until he passes.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah, he'll just keep getting older and older, and more people will know who he is. And,
Yeah.
Well-
oh yeah, there he is again.
Yeah. Well, until he freezes to death outside that one time.
well, that's the other possibility. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, so removing an agency, or you're almost guaranteeing this person's death.
Or at least
In some
that
way,
he's stuck in
eventually,
this
yeah.
lifestyle until he dies.
Yeah.
Whether that's from old age, natural causes, or elements related accident.
Yeah.
Accident.
And that's one of the things that we find difficult when we're talking about certain ends of mental health. We view it as, I don't know, it's like a really touchy subject right now, just to make it so that we can be there to help people in a productive manner, because it's like you're trying to balance the idea of allowing people the freedom
Yeah.
that everyone else is allowed, and trying to get them help. Like,
Yeah.
like that's one of the reasons that I'm big onto this like trauma therapy thing, because most people that are living on the streets have experienced some sort of severe trauma.
Oh goodness!
That we have
and
no idea how to
are
help.
currently experiencing
Yeah.
a normal level of stress and
Yeah.
when your warmth is not assured.
Yeah.
When your food is not
Food is
assured.
not assured, yeah.
Now there are resources here in town for people, but once you start mixing drugs in with that, suddenly it's hard to access those resources.
Yeah.
And drugs will be mixed in with it. So that is an ongoing trauma. How do you start from there?
Well, I just think it's like once all you can worry about is your basic essentials, and you can't really even think about what you'd like to do with yourself anymore. Like all you can think about is what am I going to eat? How am I going to get my fix? Where
Yeah.
am I going to get warm?
when some of your essentials are hard drugs that are going to mess with your ability to do the other things.
So once you get to that place where everything is attributed to those things, you can't get to the places you need to be happy genuinely.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, say I really like sewing, right?
Yeah.
But now I've developed a hard drug problem. I probably don't care about sewing anymore, even though sewing would make me happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Unless I have a permanent supply of my fix, I'm not going to care about sewing again.
Well, you might love sewing while you're peaking.
Yeah, but if I can only get one or the other, then I'm not going to get what I need to sew. Yeah. I'm just going to keep so like you're replacing everything that could make you happy with your desire for that. So you almost lose the ability to see anything but what you need. Then.
That's a legit part of it.
Yeah,
that is a legit part of it. Like there's
because I try and wrap my mind around it all the time in different ways, and I'm like, they're not doing anything but this anymore.
Yeah,
but
you can't see it.
But they definitely would have interests.
This is one of the I'm fascinated by Dr. Drew talking about this stuff because he's obviously trying to spearhead a lot of changes within California, which no one seems to be doing. But like as a clinician, he understands the different elements. It's not just because you think that these people are in a place that they're clear-headed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? These aren't clear-headed decisions that they're making with their own agency. This is a part of the disease of addiction that they're currently suffering with, that they are not able to see where they're at. They're not able to see their circumstances and
where they were at before it started.
He said he's had so many people that when they get sober and they're able to, like, that mechanism starts to turn around, they get so angry that people didn't do anything. They get so mad that it's like people just left them in that.
Yeah.
Because they had no idea that they were really in that situation. They're stuck. And since a government or a populace won't step in, because they're afraid that they're taking away their individual agency, that slow death gets prolonged and extended, and they're just staying in that which they could be free from.
You know, they're sitting there going, I spent 8 years in a fugue state.
I would think I would feel ripped off for time.
Yeah,
I lost a lot of my best years.
Yeah. Why don't you throw me in a padded room for 2 months and feed me methadone until I got back on my feet and had a frickin' plan?
Yeah, and I can start seeing my feet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's so unfair.
These are not the opinions of YouTube or any of us in particular. We are just discussing the topic with open minds.
And it's a topic that we have no real solutions for either.
We are not educated on the topic. We just have opinions.
It's just sad.
And ideas.
You know what I mean? Like, I
want help for everybody.
I want to help people in whatever way. And that's...
You can take this to less extreme places. So, like, we don't need to talk about that part of it particularly. But, like, when I see... I'm going to use my mother as an example. Because I've talked about her before. She's got this empty nest. She thinks her life and the purpose for it is pretty well over, and now it seems like she's mostly waiting to die.
The credits have rolled.
Yeah, and it's like, well, why don't you do what you like now? Why don't you find the thing that you like now? Like, what do you like? She almost can't answer that question.
A lot of people can't.
I can answer that question very easily. I like all kinds of things. I don't have enough time in a day to do all the things I want to do.
Where I'm at, boys.
I really don't. I'm like, man, I need more time. Because I always feel like I'm shortchanging different parts of my life.
You're telling me, man. I have people asking me for help doing things and stuff. And I'm like, these are all things I want to do.
Yeah.
But I also want to play with my toys and hang with the kids and hang with Rowan and work in my house.
I don't have
and do all
time
those other
enough
things.
for all the things I would like to do.
Exactly.
That being said, that's not me saying I want to live longer because I've already established. Like, I'm perfectly content.
That's already off the table.
I'm perfectly content dying one day, but like until that day comes,
Again,
I'm gonna
if I can live awesome,
I'm gonna
I'll take
be
a little bit more time.
filling my plate, right? Like keep it full. Because there was a time when I wasn't doing that. Now I see that was mostly why I was up. That was a part of why I was depressed to begin with. Was I wasn't biting off as much as I could chew.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You weren't feeling accomplished.
Yeah, it was a lot of just like...
You weren't climbing enough hills.
I'm not doing enough stuff that I like. I don't know if I ever will be. I don't have the money to do that. All those excuses.
Classic depression, yeah.
Yeah. And so once you start just going, I'm just going for it. It just seems like other things start to kind of fall in place too. I'm not trying to be toxically positive though. So we did have a guy who watches the podcast say, it kind of hurts to hear just get up and go after it, because that's not always as easy for some people.
Dude, when you're
Yeah,
in,
at no
you're-
point
I
have we said any of
understand.
this is easy.
when you're
No,
in
I
a depression,
know.
like I was deep in a depression for a long time, and that language just was angering.
Oh, I know.
Like you just because it's not that simple when you're in it. It's just not, and I get that.
But
And that's-
referentially looking back, it's like there were things I could have done to help myself if I had been open to it.
I think there's something to the language that we're trying to figure out when it comes to these things that is kind, and like we're trying to work on the kind part, I think, right now in society, where it's like we understand and we're it's okay, it's common, people deal with this, you're not alone. Those are all the kind side of this language. And then I think once we kind of get into the kind side, we'll start working on the get out of it side of it, because I think right now one of the things that is most difficult for me was I was finding most people were not giving me productive language. They weren't encouraging me. They weren't giving me outs. They weren't giving me solutions. They weren't. It was just kind of like
Beating you up over it.
well, when I went to go see a doctor, they didn't recommend therapy, which is wild, and they just gave me meds, which made it so that the lows weren't super low, and I all of a sudden couldn't feel, and my thought processes got worse. But it was just one of these things where it was like he was very kind in how he dealt with me. It was very much like I felt like, okay, this is something that is not unique to me. I'm not alone, blah, 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 blah. But it was not in the idea that this has a solution.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like, yeah,
Put this blanket over it. It'll be
kinda,
fine.
yeah. Just cozy up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
There's
fine.
a rug here. Sleep it under there.
You've just got a chemical imbalance.
lay on
Let
the
me
rug.
flip the switch.
Yeah, which like that's not true.
You
at
have
all.
to address the things that are
Unfortunately,
leading
it's really
to it.
not true.
Chemical imbalance, sure.
Yeah.
But that switch is not a switch.
No. And
It's
how
a-
did you get to said chemical imbalance?
This is what I always say.
Yeah.
Like, there is something too. Like, if your father just took his own life, you have a right to be upset about
Yeah.
that. You can't just go take this pill and you'll feel much better.
No.
Your father just died. You have a chemical imbalance.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I actually think that imbalance is probably important. Well,
Yeah, I feel like that
died
imbalance is probably healthy right
kind
about
of keeps
now.
me in the
Yeah.
realm of human being.
Yeah.
So, but that was one of those things. Like, I think our society is trying to get our heads wrapped around the kindness side of things, and then I feel like hopefully the next step will be working on the getting people out of it.
But on that note, I use that example on purpose.
Yeah.
Because that's one that everyone can understand. But there's lots of things that would have that same effect on you that not everyone else will understand.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, that would bother anyone. But maybe I have something unique to me that's going to bother me as much as that you don't share the same feeling for.
Mm-hmm.
So now if I tell you about that, then it's like, what's the problem? Just get over it.
Right.
So you get different amounts of sympathy from people based on what your problem is.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a unique scale. Like,
Yeah.
if it bothers you a lot, it's not necessarily going to make sense to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to get that same. So, like, if I just told you, oh, I'm really down in the dumps. What's wrong? Oh, I haven't been tattooed for 2 months.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you big baby. What's wrong with you? Get on with it. Your
Well-
father didn't just die.
But here,
You
so
know what I mean?
this is what I'm saying. Like in terms of the kindness element, you could be like, I didn't get tattooed for 2 months. That is how I manage my stress.
Yeah.
And so I have lost my stress manager.
Yeah.
And then you could be, that person would be like, okay, well, I get what it's like to not have a stress manager. You should
Because my
probably
dad was
start-
my stress manager.
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
okay.
there's other examples, but I always want to use the most mappable ones,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I'm just saying that, like, it might seem right offable, but I think there's a way of conveying it that would make sense to Joe Average. And then all of a
Sure.
sudden you could talk about the language around the getting out of it.
But we're going to go to an area that I didn't really want to go to too
Okay.
badly, but most of what we're putting out is online.
Mhm.
So, like, when I say that online, I'm not getting kindness, I'm getting trolled.
Yeah. I think,
I'm getting cyberbullied by people.
But
you know what I mean?
okay, so I think
There's no kindness in the comments section.
I don't think human issues deserve to be cyberly put out.
I would agree with that. Nothing that you're feeling vulnerable about in the moment. So when I speak referentially about something that's happened from a place of strength, then it's aspirational. Then it's inspirational, and it's serving some purpose. Like, say if I tell a story about surviving some hard point in my life, I'm not in that hard point now, though, looking for sympathy. I'm not looking for someone to come in and kiss my boo-boos. You know what I mean? That's not where I would go for that.
Well,
And if I did do that, I think, and if I was still feeling vulnerable in that moment, I'm asking for trouble.
Well, so take that whole thing, and then say you've got 1,000 people that follow you, right? Where are the circumstances in life that you would be in a room talking to 1,000 people, and you would be bearing your soul or something like that?
TED Talk, Remy.
Well, but even a TED Talk, that's to try and formulate a point. That's one side
I
of
might do a
communication,
TED
right?
Talk one day.
One-sided communication is
I
not
think
the...
I could do a few.
This is where I think digital is like those situations. It's one-sided communication. You're trying to convey something out. You're not looking for response.
Also,
right?
let's imagine...
That's not what most people will tell you. If you put it out there, you're looking for a response. You're doing this for attention.
But what I'm saying is you're doing it in a buckshot way.
Yep.
Right? Like if you're in a giant room giving this TED
not a
Talk,
conversation.
not every single person can come and talk to you
Right.
about it during that, right?
Yeah.
Like there's this limitation of scale. And that's where I feel like hopefully we get around to a place of understanding that when you're dealing with issues that are important like that, you can't be at scale talking about them. You can't just be on Facebook putting out a post and expecting to get back one or 1,000
I know
kind
exactly
responses.
what you're talking about.
I've got a
And
fun addition to this, actually. After this.
When I post something, I'll respond to the comments, but none of them are really affecting me. Like, it's not like, oh my gosh, someone said something mean to me. I can't go out today. But, like, the youth of today, that's more commonly happening. A lot of kids are taking it personal when people cyberbully them.
I think for a long time that was happening a lot. I think kids are smarter than what we give them credit for, though.
Well, I think the cyberbullying that is referred to in these ads, the particularly dangerous stuff, is when it's kids who are sitting at home, don't have a big social life at school.
Exactly.
But their peers, their friends who they know individually, who they know have to face tomorrow, are then giving them shit.
That's,
online.
I think, more
That's
the
the cyberbullying that is killing kids.
Yeah, and
Real life
it's
consequences.
Yeah.
You're taking school home with you,
They're
too.
bo- they're-
like, if you got to deal with a bully at
The
school,
bully
that's
followed
one
you
thing.
home. They're texting you all evening about how to piece of shit you are, what they're going to do tomorrow to you, or what they're going to say to you tomorrow.
What a
Yeah.
nasty form of communication.
Oh,
Yep.
man.
Yep.
It's horrible.
And that's why there should be no phones at the supper table.
Well, yeah.
So your kid cannot get
obviously.
bullied for 20 minutes a day.
Man, I don't know what, like, I think it will be fine in terms of the way that it works out, because I'm I'm the optimist on this. So, like...
Since when? You're the pessimist.
Right, sorry. This will not be fine.
We'd established this.
I'm just a big fan of good ideas winning out over bad ideas. Like, I really do think that's how life shakes out, even if
That's
it takes a long
hilarious.
time to get to it.
Thank you. I didn't want to be the one to say it. but-
I do. That's like it. You can have a bad idea winning out for a very long time, but eventually a bad idea is it's founded on bad information. Anything that's founded poorly, any. There are many examples throughout history where bad ideas take root for a very long time and then eventually lose out because they're on poor ground. You know what I mean? I don't know if you could take it philosophically, but I do believe that a good idea will win out over time. It might be at great expense to society and to individual people, but I think eventually it comes around. You know what I mean? Like the idea that like sugar is a stimulant or like a health food for in the 60s. It's like, well, okay, you could found that on a bad idea, but eventually it's like, oh no, this is terrible.
This is poison.
It might cost a bunch of people their lives and or their feet, but after a while, it's like, okay, well, you can try and have that bad idea win out, but it's on a poor foundation, and I think eventually it falls apart. it's like any pyramid scheme, right?
Yeah.
Like, do you ever think a pyramid scheme's going to last forever?
So what good idea is going to win out in this scenario?
In which scenario?
What we were just talking
He's
about.
asking
mental
for
health?
examples.
The cyberbullying, the not sharing. We'll make it even simpler than that. Not being vulnerable on social media, and when you are vulnerable.
So,
Well, cyberbullying mostly pays off in school shootings.
I mean, no, but like,
I thought that's exactly. I thought they were totally correlated.
so if you were to take the
At
idea
least partially.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens when you get a new tool?
You use the tool for all
You gotta
kinds of
take it out of
things.
the box.
Say you're gonna chop wood. It's your first time swinging an axe. Okay, how does that go? The very first
Your
time you
back's a
swing an
little
axe.
sore the next day.
Back's a little sore. You're inefficient.
Yeah,
you
you're
might
not
have a
good
couple
at
of
it.
close
Yeah.
calls, and you might accidentally go near hitting your foot.
You got some blisters. You accidentally hit the dog. It was a bad time.
It's a bad time. And then
Poor dog.
after 15 years of swinging that same hatchet, how good are you with that hatchet?
proficient as balls.
Hopefully.
This is a new tool.
Yeah.
All of these things are new tools. We've used them poorly. We will use them
Problem
well,
is-
and then it will change over time.
The only problem is your axe doesn't get better and faster and smarter the more you use it.
Of course
Just
not.
like bombs.
This does. Who knows if we'll even be interacting the same way in 10 years. We can't do that 15-year procedure getting better at it over time because it's getting better at us.
Okay, so but what I'm saying is
It's getting smarter than us.
what I'm
Yeah.
saying is like when you have that hatchet, maybe you try and use it for other things that it's not intended. Maybe you start using it as a screwdriver for a minute.
Like
and
what we were
then
talking about
you
with
realize,
the tattoo machine.
Yeah. You start to realize that this hatchet is really only good at the one thing.
I'm eating my soup with a hatchet.
All I'm saying is, just because a tool does something doesn't mean that we can't use it or misuse it, and doesn't mean that through its misuse, you will understand eventually that it is misuse, and you need to find the right use for it.
What I want to say on this is I think before we learn how to use it, the tool's completely different.
I don't think so.
No? You think that
I
we're
know
just-
what you're referring to because the tool is technically working against us.
And
Oh,
this,
yeah.
and in this case, the hatchet
It wants
is
us to be-
a series of multinational mega corporations.
It wants us for not
That prey on
nefarious
us.
reasons.
Capitalistic reasons.
Yeah, capitalistic reasons. It wants us to be upset because that gets our attention,
Yes.
which is
but,
why we see a lot of stuff we don't like in our feeds.
But now we're aware that this tool does this. right?
Some of us are.
No, I think a vast
Yeah.
majority of people watch a documentary or hear a thing or, like,
and,
I'm
and then
just saying,
2
like,
weeks later, reinstall Facebook on their phone.
sure.
Yeah,
okay.
there's a
That's
lot of
the
stuff
trick
that's
here.
only in your feed to bother you.
And just because you spend an hour and a half being aware of the issue,
Yes.
doesn't mean
You
that
can't
you are
live in
now
that
in any way impervious
constant
to the algorithm.
sobriety.
I feel
You're
like
implying more enlightenment to people than
No.
most people walk around with.
no, I'm saying on average, people started off being really bad drivers, and now our accidents get lower and lower.
That's right.
and
Even
lower.
though cars got faster and faster
Yes.
and more dangerous.
On average, human beings acclimatize to their situations. On average, I'm not saying that like individual outliers and in this instance and that instance. And no. What I'm talking about is en masse as a whole in the zeitgeist, we move within that sphere pretty well. We develop, we change, we put things in place. We start
You are the optimist.
No, I'm just taking a
Today.
look at
He's
how
jealous today.
I'm saying this is this is just from viewing culture. Like the idea of electric car was stupid for a long time. Now all of a sudden, most people are like,
The way
"Oh
of the
man,
future.
I still
This is
do
the-
hear
this is
those
the narrative.
comments from people.
Yeah.
That
was
are
that
like,
ever the
"Wow."
case 5 years ago?
No,
it was
so-
just this is stupid."
So I'm only like in the last month or two coming to the realization that the electric car might be the future.
Yes.
Because I've been a major proponent of like, you
Well, with the gas prices as high as they are, huh?
Okay, I'm not going to get into an electric vehicle rant. Go ahead.
All I'm
That was
saying
close.
is
Oh man.
all I'm saying is culture has more of an impact on these things than what we think it does. We think these things impact culture more than they do.
Right.
Culture will decide by the way that it evolves. It's like its own organism, right? Like language has evolved a crazy amount. If you watch a movie from 2001 today, you go, whoa.
And then someone
life's
gets
way
canceled.
different. And then you go to the 1980s and you go, holy shit, this is wild. I can't believe we did this.
Yeah.
And that is the way that it goes. There was no tool that came into play that made it so that happened. That was culture developing and changing and all those types of things. And it ebbs and flows and swings,
But
and it goes in random
The one
terrible
thing
areas
that
too.
has changed the way for us is the fact that we've never been in as constant communication with the world around us.
It's a tool.
Right? You could be more regional before.
It's a tool. We thought this with like the teletype.
But like, yeah,
You
well,
can send
I
a message
understand.
across the globe.
It was
It's
like, oh
crazy.
my
It's
god,
gonna change
TV, that
society.
guy's somewhere else in the world, and
Yeah.
I could see him talking right here.
Yeah.
But now that's every person in the world if you
Yeah.
want.
But again, they're just tools. No,
Yeah.
we try and give them way more power than they have. The power that they do have is preying on something that's already in us. Like all these things that we're talking about, algorithms, and you're getting addicted to Facebook and stuff like that. That's just the tool using something
Don't
that's
get addicted
currently.
to Facebook, man.
Well, yeah, no.
It's
I don't know
so
who's doing
bad.
that.
Anytime because I'll go on there sometimes, just quick glance through, and I'm just like, oh my god, this is horrible.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
I used to think
awful.
that Instagram was just like dummied Facebook. When Instagram first came out back in like 2011 or 12 or whatever it was, I was like, why would you get an Instagram? It's just a
Poor man's Facebook.
poor man's Facebook. It's just Facebook with less information. And I actually care about a little bit of information now and then, right? And now I get it. Like I've got for a long time. I've been able to get it, but like I remember thinking, like, why would you even have this? Just picture Facebook. Like why? And then Twitter was just words Facebook.
Yeah, words Facebook.
Right.
Now Twitter's basically just Facebook, but for elitists.
All I keep hearing is how everybody hates Twitter now because it's become so angry. Like everybody's like the cancel mob is on Twitter in full.
It's a
rage.
very particular type of person that goes on Twitter. Because
I've
their
never
user
used
base
it.
is super small compared
Yeah.
to the rest of them, right? But everybody talks about Twitter as though it's this big thing.
Yeah.
But it's like compared to everybody else's platforms, all the other social medias, like even Snapchat or TikTok, like it's silly numbers comparatively.
Snapchat has survived longer than I thought it would.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well,
I
that
thought that was just
Snapchat
gonna
dude was big on keeping their IP, right? Like he really valued keeping that that app because they got offered many times to get bought out, and he was just like, "No, I'm good."
Well, if
And,
you're already making enough money,
they weren't making any money at the beginning.
are they making money now?
It was just that they didn't want to.
I don't have a Snapchat. Actually, I
I don't
made
either.
one. But I just wanted to check out. Apparently got a couple features on some page, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I better go look.
Well, you probably need one eventually.
Yeah.